Opponent selection for Canelo Alvarez seems scarce, and Canelo's options, well, they just don't sound appetizing. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Head over to my Patreon. Link is in the description box. You can also become a YouTube channel member and hit the join button. Also, before I get started, another great way to support the channel is ESPN Plus. Order ESPN Plus directly from me. It does help the channel if you guys want. And ESPN Plus, they got a lot of original content. They also, it looks like they're getting close. Don't quote me on this, but Jorge Masvidal versus Usman, UFC 251. It looks like that could go down. So you can get the ESPN Plus pay-per-view from me by clicking on that link as well. And you know, tons of great content. Like I said, it helps the channel in a phenomenal way when you guys utilize that link for your ESPN Plus needs. Now, I want to make this video. Canelo Alvarez, he's been training. He looks in shape. But the problem is the DAZN curse strikes again. You know, I came out with the DAZN curse, and it's just based on patterns that I'm seeing. And for me, Canelo's options, they don't look inviting. They don't, like, as a true boxing journalist and, you know, someone who covers the sport, they just don't look good. You know, Sky Sports, right? They posted this. Ryder says Canelo's team contacted by Hearn. John Ryder reveals that Eddie Hearn contacted Canelo's team to confirm his availability for a September fight, right? And some people don't even know who Ryder is. They're like, what? Knight Rider? You know, Ryder Strong? Who? J.R. Ryder? Like, who is this? But his name is John Ryder of the UK. Now, nothing against John Ryder particularly. I do think he should have won versus Caleb Smith. That was his last outing. Very controversial outcome. So he did a good job with Caleb Smith. But Caleb Smith still has questions to answer too. I understand he won the World Boxing Super Series, but he himself has never faced, you know, the top names. Like even George Groves, that's a domestic level guy that, you know, lost to Badu Jack already, had already lost to Carl Froch twice by knockout. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't like Caleb Smith had even himself fought world competition outside of the UK. And I told you one thing that was going to hurt DAZN is Eddie Hearn. He has the biggest stable in the boxing on the DAZN side, and the UK style matchmaking simply doesn't translate to America. You have to get guys and Americans if you're trying to sell it. Like, listen, if you want to put all the UK fights you want together and keep it in the UK, that's fine. But DAZN, we know they are trying to market and make this sellable and make this blow and make this pop in America. So my thing is this. You have to familiarize American audiences with some of these fighters. John Ryder, I don't think he's ever even fought in America. I mean, I could pull it up. You guys can look it up on BoxRec, but he's not a big name. And the fact that this name is being linked to Canelo, he's coming off of a loss, and you can't just blame the pandemic. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, hey, budget cuts, pandemic. I do not care. I am a boxing fan. These companies have a lot of money. These corporations have a lot of money. They've been stacking off of boxing. There's companies and belts that have sanctioning fees. I don't care. If you're selling something to the public, then you have to give the public what they want. I don't care about a pandemic. Besides that, you know, some of the names mentioned for Canelo were names that were associated with Canelo before the pandemic was even known about or had really reached a global status. So this is John Ryder. And he's wearing a Canelo t-shirt, which to me is a little bit lame. Like, you know, it's a little bit, I get what he's doing. He's campaigning, trying to get the fight. And he's wearing that during his workout. But I think that's a little bit too thirsty for my taste and desperate looking. But maybe the fight's done or something, and he's just wearing it to hint at the Canelo fight. I don't know. But the options I'm hearing for Canelo don't sound good. Now, Mike Coppinger of The Athletic, he already posted this. It says, breaking, Billy Joe Saunders tells The Athletic he is withdrawing from consideration for a Canelo fight September 12th, citing his inability to properly train. Also, like to train during the pandemic. Also, it's because of money. Here's a direct quote from Billy Joe Saunders. I am not ready in September. I'm not another belt for Canelo. They want to try to play mind games. That don't work with me. I play the biggest mind games in British boxing. So this is a quote from The Athletic. You guys can follow that to see more. So Billy Joe Saunders was the name. They were talking about DAZN coming to the UK and in different markets. Currently, I think they're in 9 markets. So they were talking about DAZN UK. This is a UK fighter who's a champion, even though he didn't really fight anyone in that division. His best names are at 160, not 168. But Billy Joe Saunders was coming off a lousy performance, and so is Caleb Smith, and John Ryder didn't get the victory, so he never got the belt from Caleb Smith. So you guys see, from a boxing fan perspective, this is bad for DAZN because, again, Canelo, all the names that I'm really hearing, they're throwing out weird names like Anthony Durrell. He's also coming off of a loss. That's my guy, but he's coming off a loss, stoppage loss to David Benavidez. So it's like Canelo was the biggest thing smoking in boxing, and now it's gotten to the point where the names for Canelo are John Ryder, who lost his last fight, even though he should have won. Caleb Smith, is a name that I don't think Canelo's going to fight, but he should have lost his last fight, so bad performance. Billy Joe Saunders off a bad performance. We're even seeing names, and this could be a distraction or whatever. I'm just going off of what's being reported. They're even saying names like David Lemieux. David Lemieux could possibly get the September fight. This is Lemieux's promoter, his Quebec promoter from Canada, Eye of the Tiger Management or whoever, right? It says Lemieux considered. You see this? David Lemieux. Canelo and David Lemieux was talked about years ago, and they never pulled the trigger. It says, after several years of waiting, will David Lemieux finally face Canelo Alvarez? There is nothing guaranteed, but the name of the Quebec fighter is among the list of potential candidates to compete with the Mexican champion in September. This information confirmed by, again, the promoter, the Canadian promoter, Estefan, who's with Eye of the Tiger Management. Quote, David is indeed in the discussion, said the businessman. I spoke with Eric Gomez, one of the Golden Boy bosses, he's the president, Thursday on the subject. Right? It will depend on the offers made to us. One thing is certain, David will not fight on the cheap. So, it's just the same story with DAZN. Everyone's complaining about money. Golden Boy has Ryan Garcia angry at money. Eddie Hearn was working with Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. The fight was announced, and then they pulled the plug in Serrano's team, saying Eddie Hearn is worse than horrible. Eddie Hearn saying that Serrano owes him $10,000 for wasted funds and is getting her canceled from shows. I mean, this is just crazy. They wanted Canelo to be the Mexican Mayweather so bad, and this ain't it, because Canelo is not moving like Mayweather. When Mayweather, even if he fought Berto, it's not comparable to Canelo versus John Ryder, because everybody and their mama knows who Berto is. Not everyone in America, where you're looking to cash in and market, this fight. Canelo is established in the American market and in Mexico. And those are probably his 2 strongest regions. He hasn't fought in the UK like that. He hasn't fought in Japan like that. He hasn't fought in Australia. So the 2 established markets, you have to get their buy-in. He's from Guadalajara, Mexico. And so you have the Mexican market, and then you have the American market. And John Ryder's from the UK without a big brand anywhere else outside the UK. I don't know exactly how big he is in the UK, but I never really even hear his name come up like that. So, I get it. He's trying to campaign for the fight. He's coming off a performance where he thinks he beat Caleb Smith, and I get it. I'm not, no shade to him, fair play to him. But in my opinion, this is just disastrous for DAZN. because Canelo's options don't seem great. And then you look at their other star, Triple G, who's supposed to be a star, I guess you could say, and they're talking about him fighting Kamil Sesmeta, a mandatory from Poland, with 5 knockouts in 21 fights or so. It's just, this is ridiculous. And this is what gets people to check out. This is why boxing has hardcore fans that get disenchanted, and even some surface area fans that check out from boxing. Meanwhile, you have UFC, as I mentioned earlier, and they're trying to get the fight. Hold on, let's see if I can pull it up. ESPN MMA. They're trying to get a fight with Jorge Masvidal and Usman, a championship level fight. Look, Usman's there. Look. So I guess it is official at this point of recording this video. Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal have agreed to fight Saturday's UFC 251, sources told Ariel Helwani. That's big. They have been beefing for a minute on social media. And when Canelo went against Jorge Masvidal's last fight, the BMF, Canelo had to wait for the Masvidal-Nate Diaz fight to end. You know, here's Billy Joe Saunders. He admitted his performance was not worthy of a Canelo fight. It's all here. So you were going to fight Billy Joe Saunders, even though he said his last performance, he looked bad. And Canelo waits. Hold on. Even though he looked bad, he admitted he looked bad. There's the article. And he himself says, I don't deserve Canelo. I don't deserve Canelo. And Canelo's team says, oh, yes, you do. And they offer him a fight. Now he withdraws because the money is, they're trying to make him do a pay cut, and he's already made millions before. So he's like, no, I'm not doing a pay cut. Plus I don't have proper time to train, you know. And Chris Eubank Jr. accused him of not taking it because he's doing something like drug wise. Right. And this is just, it's going down here, bro. Look. Canelo says no mas to DAZN, delaying his fights. That was a horrible look, people. Canelo was not impressed with DAZN after his last fight start time got delayed until UFC 244. Told you. It's all in the books. You know, everything. You got UFC making fights like this on late terms. And we're talking about the supposed to be biggest star in boxing, fighting John Ryder, coming off of a loss, who doesn't have a profile in America. It just doesn't make sense, especially when you're charging $20 a pop for a monthly subscription to DAZN. And Canelo, he's not the showman like a Floyd Mayweather, where he's going to give you all these quotables and gems and make a lit press conference. So you have the most blah basic fight when you're talking about Canelo before. I'm talking about the pre-build. Canelo's a good fighter in the ring. But what I'm saying is to build the event, you don't really have a showman. Canelo's just mature. He does his thing and says what he has to say, and that's it. Like, there's no like Broner or Conor McGregor, Floyd type of showmanship and theatrics. So how are you going to make this an actual thing? Because this dude's wearing a Canelo shirt? That's lame. You know what I mean? He's coming off of a loss. If he gets it, fair play to him, because he should have won his last fight. I just don't think it's a big fight. And the other reason why I don't care about the pandemic and whatnot when it comes to Canelo is DAZN try to flex, and they gave Canelo this crazy contract that no one had ever heard of. You know, it's supposed to be the richest sports contract. Plus they gave Golden Boy fights and gave them a separate jackpot, or, you know, pot to put Golden Boy fights on. And now you have to get cheap opponents because you're already losing money, because Canelo's events are dwindling down and you're seeing less people, less numbers. This is before the pandemic. Look at Canelo Kovalev weigh-in. It was scarce. You put it in Vegas, and then New York had the UFC 244 that everyone was checking for. They had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It doesn't matter. Right? They had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at the UFC joint on the same night. That's why Canelo, he's saying, man, I'm not waiting anymore, because that was just he knows it's a bad look. It's a bad look how DAZN put him out there. Canelo waits for UFC. Watch. Let's see if we can pull it up. 244. Let's see. Canelo Kovalev delayed to avoid overlapping with UFC. DAZN delays Canelo Alvarez to avoid UFC 244 conflict. Who does that? How do you stage a fight on the same night as someone else and you have Canelo waiting like this, which looks terrible? He had already warmed up and then he had to wait because Ryan Garcia got a quick first round knockout, and then he's just waiting in the locker room and Kovalev's just waiting in his locker room because of they delay. Look, DAZN waits until after 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a Canelo Kovalev fight. Bro, why is Canelo fighting after 1 a.m.? That's unheard of. That's unheard of. And it was a bad look. And last year, I said Wilder, Errol Spence, and others. Look, this is Canelo waiting. This is Canelo and Kovalev waiting while UFC's going on. They showed it in the MGM. MGM called Dana White begging to be able to show the UFC fight because the fans were getting restless, and Dana White approved because he has a great relationship with the MGM properties. But the thing that looks bad about it is this is your star. This is your star and how you treat him, and they have to warm up and then get cold and wait for UFC to end. And if you look at it, the dichotomy of what I'm saying, DAZN has Bellator, which is an MMA company, and it's a rival to the UFC. So you're really showing on the screen at a Canelo fight at the MGM properties, you're showing a rival to your network, a competitor's broadcast and telecast. I've never heard of that. That would be equivalent of Coke having a Christmas party, Coca-Cola, and the Coke machine is broke. So they have someone go to Costco and bring Pepsis back. It's like, whoa. I'm at the Coca-Cola Christmas party, and then we can't get the Coke machine to work, the soda dispenser. So I send people to Costco or Sam's Club to bring back Pepsi instead of other Coke products. Who does this? Bad look for Canelo. Bad look. And like I said, with the UFC getting late terms fights like this done, which it looks like it is, Usman versus Masvidal, and then you got Canelo, and we fast forward to boxing. He's supposed to be the biggest person with the richest contract. And then you got him fighting potentially David Lemieux. David Lemieux was supposed to fight on 2 Canelo undercards, and he pulled out. One, he was, look, listen, I'm ready to back up every word I'm saying. Look, I'll show you all of it. David Lemieux sent to hospital. He was on the Canelo fielding card. Look, David Lemieux cancels a fight for health reasons. You see? Montreal Gazette. He was supposed to fight on the Canelo undercard. Look, everything's here. Citing health reasons, David Lemieux has canceled his fight for Saturday, New York, Madison Square Garden. He was supposed to fight Toriano Johnson, but I guess he killed himself trying to make weight, and he couldn't do it. Look, see, hold on. I skipped off it too quick. Bear with me. Look, David Lemieux, even better. David Lemieux, this is Chris Mannix, who works with DAZN. David Lemieux is off Saturday's Canelo fielding show on DAZN. Multiple sources tell Sports Illustrated. Per source, look, there's the tweet. Per source, Lemieux is suffering from weight-related dehydration. So they elevated Tevin Farmer versus Francisco Fonseca, another guy that was later on DAZN on an undercard for Ryan Garcia, and that's been bumped to the co-main event. So he was on one card. This is David Lemieux. This is David Lemieux, people. So he got kicked off the card because it wasn't safe for him to fight. And then he was supposed to fight on the Canelo Jacobs. Watch. David Lemieux off. So you got to know your boxing. Canelo Jacobs card. Lemieux, boom. You see how quick I pulled it up? He was supposed to actually fight John Ryder. That's funny. That's funny. I forgot the actual opponent. Yeah, see? Lemieux off Canelo's Jacobs card. So the funny thing is, you know how everything comes back around. David Lemieux was featured on Canelo Jacobs card, but then he got injured He was supposed to fight John Ryder as a co-feature. And now these two guys who didn't fight because Lemieux pulled out with an injury are allegedly in the Canelo runnings. You know, let's get back to it. Exhibit A. So they didn't even compete on the Canelo Jacobs card to solidify anything and like get a winner out of that. John Ryder goes on to fight Caleb Smith, arguably beats him, and now he's in the running for Canelo and he's wearing his t-shirt. Same thing with Lemieux. I showed you. His own promoter is saying that they contacted him. So it's just slim pickings for Canelo Alvarez. And I don't care. You guys can cry about, don't cry for me, Argentina, Evita. I'm not going to cry about a pandemic and say that's the reason, because deeper than that, Canelo is getting a crazy rich contract. And now you're trying to, so in the effort to save money, you're trying to pay cut the other fighters. People see this. There's no reason that you would be a fighter, a top shelf fighter, or somebody who's in the discussions like Lemieux or John Ryder or Billy Joe Saunders or Caleb Smith or whoever, and you see Canelo's making $36.5 million to fight, and for the opportunity, you're just supposed to fight Canelo for peanuts. It doesn't make sense. So DAZN really should have maybe structured, like had like a pay scale, like, hey, Canelo, if you're fighting a fight, like basically the same thing as pay-per-view, but just not have a pay-per-view. Say, hey, Canelo, if you fight John Ryder and you get us 1 million subscribers from that, you get this pay scale. If you only get 500,000 subscribers that tune in for this or these type of statistics, then we'll give you lesser money, and so on and so forth, right? Like little ranges and stuff like that. But apparently Canelo, he's living high on the hog. He's on the high horse because he's getting mad bread regardless of who he fights. So fair play to Canelo. He got a deal that works for him. But what it doesn't work for is boxing, because he's not fighting Charlo. He's not fighting Andrade, unless, you know, a rabbit out the hat, which I don't see coming. None of these guys are even being linked to him. He doesn't want to fight at 160. I told you the walls are closing in. New media. We control the narrative. You know, 168, you got guys like Caleb Plant. They said they allegedly wanted to fight Caleb Plant. Then why are we talking about John Ryder? You know, why are we talking about these other guys? Why are we not talking about Canelo and David Benavidez? You want to fight on the quote unquote Mexican dates in May and September, but you don't want to fight a Mexican fighter or a Mexican American fighter who's a beast. David Benavidez hit Porky Medina and it looked like a video game, bro. Like I really failed to think of anybody offhand that punched somebody with the type of combination that he laced Porky Medina with. That just looked crazy. He was like, bah, 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 and the guy's head was going crazy. Like, that would be a fun fight for fans. But once again, I don't know if DAZN gets it, and they're looking at all other options. I just don't see these being impactful options. That's my take. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the Canelo options that you're hearing? David Lemieux, what does that mean? David Lemieux just got to 168. See, some of you guys don't really know boxing for real, and I could really stay on here for an hour because I know my stuff. David Lemieux has one fight against Max Berserker or whatever his name is. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And he got knocked down in the fight. So he literally has like one fight. I'm not talking about early career, maybe catchweight fights or something like that. But he just moved up to this division after pulling out of 2 Canelo fights, one for dehydration, as I showed you, one for an injury. Then he moved up and fought this Max Berserk dude, and he got dropped in the fight. Look, Lemieux got dropped down. This is not a game, people. Lemieux down in the 1st and 5th round. And then he later knocked Berserk down in round 6. So this unknown commodity with the 35-5-2 record dropped David Lemieux in 2 rounds in this new division, right? In a little known fight that nobody really watched, but I know about it because of boxing. And then Lemieux dropped him once, right? And he barely won via split decision. You see this? He barely won via split decision. Y'all see? So we don't really know David Lemieux as a full-fledged 168 pounder because he's, look at all his other fights, 159, 159, 160. You see what I'm saying? He was fighting at the division below. So if Canelo tries to drag David Lemieux up, what does that really mean? Even though David Lemieux, I actually like David Lemieux. He's a fun fighter and he's a monstrous puncher. All that work that he did and all of his accomplishments were really at 160. So we get it. We see what Canelo's doing. This is why Canelo is not received the same by some of the Mexican legends, because they see what Canelo's doing in terms of fighting guys and pulling them up. Like David Benavidez is at 68. You don't have to pull him up, and he's a big boy. You know, I've stood next to him. I've interviewed him. You know, he's a big dude. He's bigger than Canelo for sure. So you wouldn't even have to pull him up. David Benavidez has called out Canelo as well. And again, what better way to have and celebrate the historic, in America, Mexican dates than to fight a Mexican warrior, you know, a Mexican American warrior that's looking like this when he fights and training. I mean, it just, to me, it don't really make sense. It don't make sense. You would rather pull up somebody. You'd rather pull somebody up. Look, he called out Canelo. See? He already called him out. This is 12 weeks ago. So this year. And Canelo's, we see what he's doing, bro. We see what he's doing. We see what Golden Boy's doing. And then Canelo's beefing with Golden Boy and Ryan Garcia. It's too much. It doesn't look good for DAZN. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Use that ESPN Plus link if you're interested. More coming. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.